It's been a little while, but I'm back with another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Um, Obviously, there's going to be spoilers in this. Um, I know that a lot of people liked this book, but I did not. So if you did enjoy this book, then you probably won't enjoy my opinions on it. Um, and a lot of that is to do with the main characters. First of all, we'll go into Lou. So I found Lou very much not like other girls' character. I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty over the sort of stereotypical fiery tomboy who always needs to snark back at everyone, and whose sole personality trait is being a badass. Of course, I'm not averse to reading about strong females, but I think a lot of writers tend to think that strong females mean they need to mouth off at everyone at any given opportunity. So um, I think especially what I dislike about these characters is that they are constantly putting down more traditionally feminine characters, and like making out they're weak. And I feel like there's a constant need for these sorts of women to be pitted against each other. Um, One of the quotes from Lou, which I think demonstrates why she possesses these traits, is a real woman, not a ludicrous pipe dream like silly. Um, so basically, she's calling herself a real woman, but saying that Celie, who I should add is the former love interest of the male protagonist, um, Reed, she's basically saying she's not a real woman. She's a fake. She's a fantasy. Real women are women like Lou. Um, so yeah, it fills me with rage because it reminds me of, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it before, how a lot of people will say things like, "Oh, real men like meat, not bones," or "Oh, curvy women are real women." Like, can we stop doing this shit? Can we stop comparing, making different sorts of women compete against each other? Because it's really harmful to say a certain type of woman is real while other types of women are not real. Um, and Celia has, from what I could tell, she's actually done nothing to Lou personally other than act as a potential rival for Reed's affection, and all Lou does is shame her. Um, so yeah, basically it's sort of like, oh no, Reed's not into those delicate feminine girls anymore because those sorts of girls are boring. Um, so he's way more into the other girls whose personality is basically being really annoying and singing bawdy tavern songs. And of course, Lou wears pants because the way you have to demonstrate that you're not like other girls is that you have to wear pants. It makes you a strong woman. We basically, as the reader, you really have it shoved down your throat that Lou's so progressive and she's so sex positive, but she also hates on people who are abstaining from sex for their own reasons. Um, and she also shames sex workers for their profession, which is not cool. So it just goes to show that Lou's particular brand of feminism, I guess, um, is based on what Lou thinks feminism should be. So basically, Lou thinks because she's tough and she wears pants, and she sings bawdy tavern songs, that she's not like other girls, and that's so feminist. Um, and then you've got Coco, who is basically the token woman of colour best friend, and who basically doesn't have anything really to do other than be flirty and be Lou's best friend. Um, like, she's a decent character, but she's only there as an extension of Lou. Um, and that's really problematic because you see a lot in film and literature how um, the POC best friend is there to be like the voice of reason and to guide the main character. They're usually not the main character themselves. They're there to be the guiding star, I guess. It sort of reminds me of, in Game of Thrones, you had everyone wanting to pit Sansa and Arya against each other. How, oh yeah, Arya's so badass. She knows how to fight and she stands up to everyone, but Sansa's weak because she's traditionally feminine. She's more subtle in her rebellion, so she's weak. And sometimes I want to tell authors, you can have more than one sort of female character and they can all be strong characters. They don't have to develop more masculine traits to conform to the patriarchy's view on strength, because that is how the patriarchy views strength. Another example is, and I'm pretty sure I referenced this in another video as well, Lagertha and Aslaug from Vikings. And obviously there's reasons to like or dislike both characters, but I found a lot of people were like, oh my god, yeah, Lagertha's a badass, blah, blah, blah. And she and Aslaug both had their problematic moments for sure, but I feel like only Aslaug was called out on this, and that's because, you know, Aslaug's a feminine character. She's her role is very much based in being a wife and her motherhood and what that represents to her, whereas Lagertha's role is a lot more about, you know, being a warrior. And I feel like because she displays more masculine traits of strength, that a lot of people find her more badass or more likable because she's not that traditional whiny feminine character. This book also has like an arranged marriage trope, which, like, my book has an arranged marriage trope, so I do really enjoy that trope, but this one didn't make sense. So Reed's chasing Lou and attacks her in public. And the only way that this can be viewed as acceptable is if they get married. And that if that seems like it doesn't make sense to you, that's because it doesn't really make sense. It seems like a bit of a reach. It seems like there are other ways to get out of that situation rather than having to be like, oh, well, I guess they have to get married now. But they just slapped a marriage on it and called it a day, I guess. Reed as a main character also quite annoyed me, I think, because not because he's like a sort of, I think because he's very much, I don't quite know how to phrase it, but he obviously, like, you know, like I said, his initial love interest is Celia, and there is nothing wrong with his interests changing from a more feminine woman to a woman who doesn't quite ascribe to those traditional feminine stereotypes, I suppose. But just the way he talks to Lou, the way he talks about women, the way he talks about witches. Oh yeah, I haven't mentioned yet, and I probably should, almost 8 minutes in, that Lou is a witch, and he is a witch hunter. So very much enemies to lovers, forbidden romance sort of thing. But again, it fell very flat for me because the lovers part of the enemies to lovers really felt forced. I did not read the third book. I did read the second book, and I found it very much filler, to the point where I couldn't really even tell you anything notable that happens in that second book. But again, like, Lou's character still infuriated me. I would say hers does more than Reed's, because Reed is obviously very stiff and formal, and it's the way he's been brought up and trained, and that's not an excuse for his behaviour at all. But I feel like Lou has this thing where she feels like she needs to change other people. She needs to change Reed, because people need to ascribe to what Lou thinks is cool and what Lou thinks is good behaviour. And again, yeah, she doesn't really, I wouldn't say she shames Reed, but she finds it amusing that he hasn't had sex yet. And I think he's about 20, so it's not really unheard of that he wouldn't have had sex, but of course Lou treats it like it's this big joke, and how, you know, he's never touched a woman, blah, blah, blah. And of course he's never been with Celie because Celie's so pure and Lou's just not. Like, Lou likes sex, so therefore she's feminist. It just very much felt like a lot of it was pushed down our throats as the readers. So yeah, I think I just found it really hard to connect to these characters and this storyline because it felt disjointed. It felt like people were just being pushed into certain circumstances because the story called for it. Like, it wasn't a natural progression. Like, you would think in a situation where like Lou and Reed had to get married that they would have sat down and be like, okay, like, what are our solutions here? What can we do? Because I really just don't think that marriage would have been, the only and final solution to, oh, he attacked a woman in public, so therefore we have to pretend it's his wife so he has an excuse to do that. I feel like there could have been a lot of other avenues that they could have taken, but they didn't. So yeah, I guess that's really my perspective on it. Like I said, I haven't read the third book. It could get better. If it does, let me know. I'm always glad to hear other people's thoughts on the matter. But yeah, I think it just didn't do it for me. It fell flat because of the reasons I mentioned before, especially because I could not get past Lou as a character. The storyline might have been interesting if Lou hadn't been the main character, but she was, and she was just really annoying. So yeah, that's my perspective on that one. I'm going to try and film another video while I have this time off during the Christmas New Year break, and it will be on a book I liked, which is Iron Widow. So stay tuned for that one.